time for the Susan Taylor Podcast, where we discuss the yoga of mind, medicine, and healing. Author of Feeling Good Matters, Sexual Radiance, and the Vital Energy Program, Dr. Taylor imparts authentic knowledge and practical tools that inspire, educate, and empower us to be a healing force for positive change. So join us and take your life and our planet to the next level.
Hello, and welcome to Episode 2, Pathways to Healing, Connecting the Visible with the Invisible. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the connection that makes our mind-body complex operate in full potential through our healing pathways. We'll talk about how ancient medical practices have given us the secrets to healing, and get some practical advice on how to root up our problems and eliminate disease altogether. I'm really looking forward to speaking on these great topics, so without further ado, let's get started. Did you ever wonder what connects our mind and body together, or what it would take to make this complex operate at its full healing potential? In order to do this, we need to look at some of the ancient healing systems known to humanity. For the purpose of this podcast, I'd like to focus on traditional Chinese medicine and the meridian system, but I'd also like to bring in Ayurveda, the sister of yoga science, when needed for a comparative association. So I always ask, what connects our human organism together? What's keeping us together? And if we look at this in terms of pathways, we may be able to shed some light and make sense of it. In traditional Chinese medicine, the term used is meridian. In yoga science, we can call them nadis. They're rivers, they're pathways for which this subtle energy can actually travel. It is said that there are over 72,000 nadis in the yoga system that make up a human organism. That's quite extensive. So let's get back to pathways so I don't go off on that tangent here. These pathways are not seen physically, since they are pathways for our subtle energy currents. So just picture this: a road map through our body, a profusion of points called acupuncture points in traditional Chinese medicine. Some people in the Ayurvedic system, they'll use marma points in the Ayurvedic medical channel. They're woven into a web or a network comprising lines or roadways of travel. These lines actually create invisible energy pathways connecting to each other, and they connect to every atom, cell, tendon, bone, organ, in fact, our entire skin surface, everything in our body. These energy channels connect the upper portion with the lower portion of our body, the right side with the left side, interior and exterior, and it makes our living organism totally connected. This is the basis for how these ancient healing systems, both traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, treats organisms' imbalances. But let's add another dimension to this interconnected body map that I just mentioned. We have mind and emotions, our thoughts and our feelings. Everything conscious and unconscious within us is within this matrix or this network of subtle energy. And the mind helps direct this energy through these pathways, and in turn has an amazing influence on whether good or bad happens or how any of this operates. As you have heard it said before, the energy of the mind is the essence of life. That's why I always stress in the yoga of mind, medicine, and healing, mind is really key. We must train our mind, and that's what we do through meditation and its practices. But our physical pathways operate according to how our mind feels and thinks. Hence, that's why we have to train our mind. We can see the importance of training our mind to be positive and vital if we want our healing force to do its job, keeping us in a happy and healthy state with that feeling of being just full of life. So there's two concepts that we need to acknowledge from what I just mentioned when identifying the healing force. Number one is we have a physical body with subtle energy channels through connecting all our organ systems from, I said, inside to outside, top to bottom, right to left. It connects it all, and with our feelings also and emotions and thoughts. These channels are named according to the organ system they represent, and in a little bit, I'll go over some of the organ systems related to that. But we also have an individual mind, as I mentioned, and when we train it properly, it directs this energy field in a healthy and balanced way. If not trained, we might go south when we're heading north. Did you ever feel like you're going to do something and all of a sudden you find yourself doing something else because you got distracted? The same principle works when it comes to healing. The energy of the mind is the essence of life. I'll say it over and over again because that's the theme of the yoga of mind, medicine, and healing. You know, how we feed our mind, what we do with our mind, and how we train our mind through meditation. All this energy that I'm talking about, the energy of the mind, and we'll get into this later on in other podcasts, but I'll just mention it now. This energy must be collected, contained, and circulated to optimize our healing power. So having this understanding provides a foundation for us to navigate the course of our own health and happiness and really navigate the understanding and the utilization of our own healing force. It might sound complex, but it really requires only that we're aware. I always say remain calm. And the acronym for that again, consciously aware, living in the moment. Awareness is what allows us to interpret and understand the knowledge from within ourselves. So, again, the awareness that exists, if we have awareness, everything else will take care of itself because we'll be able to establish simple habits of breathing, eating, and movement with that awareness, and that will help us activate and become the healing force for positive change. So let's turn a bit to the history and see how meridians and nadis were first discovered. You know, we always hear things, we just assume that they're there, but how was acupuncture? How did it really come into existence? Was that actually the first? Or was it the Ayurvedic system that actually where the training took place? And then acupuncture, the whole meridian system of traditional Chinese medicine, developing after that. Let's just take a look at some facts in history and come up with something. Ayurveda, or Ayurvedic medicine, I like to say, it's not simply knowing your dosha, is what has been watered down pretty much in our country, in the West. But Ayurvedic is really an ancient medical system, profound healing tradition. So, as an ancient medical system, it greatly influenced healthcare practices in the East and the West. By 400 AD, Ayurvedic medical texts were translated into Chinese. And by 700 AD, Chinese scholars were studying medicine in India at Nalanda University. And I had to do a little bit of digging on the history of Nalanda because I never heard of it. And Nalanda University was located in northern India and drew scholars from all over Asia, serving for hundreds of years, providing state-of-the-art teachings before being destroyed by invaders in 1193. Chinese medicine, herbology, Buddhist philosophy were also impacted by Ayurvedic knowledge. The discovery of the meridian system was discovered through the spiritual practices, namely meditation and pranayama, by those ancient practitioners who were seers. They were the seers of the subtle energy pathways. So by allowing themselves to become immersed deeply in another state of consciousness, again, that's what we learn in meditation, right? Ancient masters could literally see inside the body. Because of the heightened sensitivities of these masters, they're healing masters actually, they could withdraw their egos from the world of the five senses. That's what we all operate on all day. Look at me, I, me, mine, and the five senses. Well, they're able to withdraw and go beyond the ego and the world of the five senses and open a deeper part of themselves to parallel the world of the invisible world. That invisible pathway that I'm speaking about is really not invisible to people who are healers. Their observations have helped us understand that this invisible energy network, as I said, I prefer to say subtle since it's not invisible to everyone, and this network can enhance the spiritual development as well as create many health benefits. And that's really the story of how it evolved into these masterful medical systems. So meridians as well as nadis form invisible or subtle pathways that provide a coherence that the human body could be linked together with all its subtle aspect, with the mind itself, and allow all the structures within the body to communicate among themselves with the external universe. You see, we do live in an external environment. In fact, senses, this is for another topic, but senses are employed by our mind so that we can be functional in the external universe. Well, the meridians as well as the nadis and these subtle energy pathways, they allow us to be connected to our physical essence so that we too can be connected to the external world and operate accordingly. So now let's focus on meridian pathways, since traditional Chinese medicine has a specific clinical protocol, and I've had it used it for many, many years as my primary care, actually health, for over 20 years. And it's based on 12 clearly mapped out pathways, which we'll call meridians, which that's what they're called. So according to traditional Chinese medicine, there are 12 major meridians that run on each side of the body, one side mirroring the other. And they're 12 primary paired, and they run as follows. Just keep in mind, this is not a course on Chinese medicine, but I just would like to just give you a taste of it. There are 6 yang and 6 yin. One is light, one is dark. It's the whole yin-yang theory, and they form a pair. So your stomach meridian, which is yang, flows into the spleen, which is yin. Heart flows into small intestine, bladder to kidney, pericardium, think of the heart, to your triple worm, or your gallbladder to your liver, your lung meridian to your large intestine. So all of these are all connected to each other and flow in pathways. That's why we never just have one thing wrong. When we look at, sometimes when our bladder's off, could it be a result of the kidney or the small intestine? Because they all run into each other. And then, of course, there's 2 single mid-meridians, the governing vessel and the conception vessel, running through the front of the body and the back of the body. So each meridian is related to elements also, are earth, water, fire. In Ayurveda, we would say air and ether. In traditional Chinese medicine, they bring in metal and wood. So understanding the 5 meridian elements gives us tools for treating the imbalances arising from a lack or surplus of certain channels. And again, I just mentioned the 12 meridians and the 2 single mid-meridians because just to give you an idea that they all flow, they're based on their organs of function. The heart meridian would be with the heart involved, kidney. So also, what's so amazing about meridians, they're most active at certain times a day. And you can see in the book that I wrote, Feeling Good Matters, The Yoga of Mind, Medicine, and Healing, I give a chart in there on the time of day that each meridian would run and be more active, let's say. And that's helpful when we want to pinpoint deficiencies or overactive meridian function. So understanding the meridian pathways and the points associated, whether they're called acupressure points or marma points for transmitting ki or chi, remember we talked about in our last podcast, or even prana for that matter. These are all healing energies with different names. It's the key to activating the healing force. And again, there's more information in many, many books out there. The book that I wrote has some on it, on the Feeling Good Matters book, but there are others out there if you want to study more Chinese medicine and the 5-element theory. So although each of the 12 major meridians has its own function that relates to a specific organ system, keep in mind that the meridians have far more power and flexibility than organ systems. Okay? We're working again on physical, but they're also, remember, subtle. Everything is subtle. And that connection between the mind and body does exist, but it also exists as the connection between our consciousness and our unconsciousness. So while connections occur at the physiological level, other critical linkages do take place on an invisible, and some people call it the quantum level, that today's technology cannot yet measure. We're still in that reductionist approach. If you can't see it, it's not there, but that's not true. And with the new modality and these healing crises that are happening, people are searching more and more, how can they learn to heal themselves? And we all have that innate intelligence within us. We just really need to learn how to use it. We don't need a magician to teach us this. We have it within ourselves, and that's really my message. So I would just like to say, just to tie up this section, is this whole healing mechanism, the way they look and the way they connect with the healing pathways is how the masters alter their physical bodies through a state. And they use meditation through that state of meditation. The master has learned to use the power of these subtle pathways to change physical functions. And they do that. They also have mastery over their mental functions in their mind because that directs it. So some can even slow and even stop their heart without being dead. This ability is just to point out, not to show off, but to just point out that when a master knows the mind, they learn how to direct and control this healing force. She or he then knows all levels of our existence, from the physical to the ethereal. And it's something that we all have the ability to do. We just need to train ourselves to do it. So how can all of this support the healing process? Well, earlier I said that energy needs to be collected, contained, and circulated to live in balance. With any of these steps not being met, we have a decline in our health. For example, energy blockages can be the result of stress, injury or trauma, bad living habits like diet, habits, addictions, lack of exercise. We sit around too much, right, with our computers. And these blockages can be traced to the root of all health, whether it be physical, mental, or spiritual. There's no one individual problem without the other. So people say, well, I have diabetes. Well, diabetes is also a mental and spiritual problem. Or I have asthma. Well, that's also a physical, mental, and spiritual problem. All problems coexist on all levels. And we must, to root up the issue, and I'll stress over and over again in a couple of minutes, that to root up that issue, we have to be very well aware that any issue occurs on all those levels. Since our energy flow affects how we feel, how we think, and our overall condition of our health, when the body's life force energy becomes blocked, our imbalances will happen. And these imbalances result in disease. Dis-ease, it doesn't have to be full-blown, but dis-ease, anytime we're out of ease. You know, for centuries in China, Japan, Tibet, India, and other countries, life has been considered as a bioelectrical vibrational energy phenomena. Up until the reductionist approach came in and they just squashed all of that, it really hasn't done any service to humanity. We're getting back to that now. And it's only because of the existence of this energy in our body, this energy electrical vibration, that we move, breathe, digest food, think, and even feel. Because subtle pathways, whether we're talking about the nadis, the 72,000 nadis or probably more, or the 12 meridians, they're very powerful. They offer the smoothest channel for both our unconscious and our subconscious communications within the body to happen. So using Marma therapy, if we're doing Ayurveda, acupressure or acupuncture, if we're doing traditional Chinese medicine, to readjust and unblock the nadis or meridians, whatever language you want to use, just to unblock the pathways, is one of the best and sustainable therapies available. And I say sustainable, it's a sustainable therapy available to help any of us, any living organism, even with animals, I've used it on animals, to connect the body, mind, and spirit, to recover and rediscover our own healing power. This modality allows the unconscious mind to participate in the healing process. Again, I'll say it over and over again. We already have the mixture within ourselves to heal. We just need to tap back into it and use it with diet, nutrition, meditation, and its practice. And when I discuss meditation and its practice, I'm talking about a real systematic, complete practice from start to finish to work with and activate the outside, moving to the inside with the nervous system involved, can really help activate your healing process. And in this way, only then can we root up the issue that is causing the disturbance or the disease within our own living organism. And with this in mind, we have the power to be the power of the healing force within, to activate that and be our own healing force. And this is the wave, and this is where we're going in the future. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Contact us at susantaylor.org if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. And I'd really like to take a moment and thank you for listening. The Susan Taylor podcast comes out every week. Again, any questions or comments, something you might want to hear, contact us at susantaylor.org. Until next time, remain calm. And if you have a comment on this, let me know. Email me at feedback@susantaylor.org or comment on Facebook page. Thanks again. See you next time.